Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. The big lie, the election lie from former President Trump is entertaining but not real. These are the words from a prominent Republican senator, the Republican senator from Utah, Mitt Romney, and some pretty unbelievable comments from an ex-Trump organization executive who said, I quote, Trump deserves to go to jail. Welcome to this episode of Ignition Time, everyone. Let's start with this headline on your screen from CNN. Mitt Romney said this about former President Trump's return to rallies. He said this, and I quote, it's entertaining, but it's not real. Here are some really interesting comments from Mitt Romney, who said that the Republican Party had to move on from the big lie from Donald Trump's 2020 election lies. And he said, I quote, well, I do think it's important for each person to speak the truth and to make clear that the big lie is exactly that. But I also think, frankly, Jake, that here in the US, there's a growing recognition that this is a bit like WWF, that it's entertaining, but it's not real. And I know people want to say, yeah, they believe in the big lie in some cases, but I think people recognize that it's a lot of show and bombast, but it's going nowhere. The election is over. It was fair. Let's move on. Folks, here's my personal opinion. Were there shenanigans in the election? Yes. Are there shenanigans in every election? Yes. Do dead people vote in our election? Yes. Do dead people vote in every election? Yes. Were there enough shenanigans to affect the outcome of the election? The short answer is no. The Justice Department has said that the election was fair and square. Bill Barr, the Attorney General of the United States of America under former President Trump, actually said that all the claims about the big lie were, I quote, many Republican states where lawsuits were filed by the Trump team, all of them with Republican judges, actually said, hey, there's no proof. Folks, there is no proof. However, just because someone says something doesn't make it real. And what Mitt Romney said was, again, this is very important. I think people recognize that it's a lot of show and bombast, but it's going nowhere. The election is over. It was fair. Let's move on. In fact, let's take a look at a quote from Mitt Romney, the specific quote from Mitt Romney as he was speaking with CNN's Jake Tapper on State of the Union. Let's roll the tape and watch.
But I also think, frankly, Jake, that here in the U.S., there's a growing recognition that this is a bit like WWF, that it's entertaining, but it's not real. And I know people want to say, yeah, they believe in the big lie in some cases, but I think people recognize that it's a lot of show and bombast, but it's going nowhere. The election is over. It was fair. Look. The president was crying foul on election night, and actually before election night. And the question is, what were his sources of information? Where did he hear that the election had been fraudulently carried out? Did he hear it from the Justice Department? No. Did he hear it from the intelligence community? No. So where did he hear it from? The MyPillow guy? Rudy Giuliani?
Yep.
What were their sources of information? I mean, it's pretty clear. The election was fair. It wasn't the outcome that the president wanted, but let's move on.
Now, speaking of former President Trump, he has resumed his rallies and he's trying to create as much trouble as possible, and he's trying to create as much agitation as possible, which essentially is what a lot of Republicans are also doing. Let's take a look at this clip from Trump where he says, I quote, critical race theory is being forced on our military. Gas prices are spiking. Inflation is skyrocketing. Joe Biden is destroying our nation right before our very own eyes. Yes, sure, that's from a president who essentially ignored the worst pandemic in the history of the United States of America, in modern history, that resulted in the death of over 600,000 people. Let's roll the tape and hear former President Trump at his recent rally. Let's watch.
But the schools, when you take a look at schools and you look at all of the things that happen, left-wing indoctrination camps, critical race theory is being forced on our military. Gas prices are spiking, inflation is skyrocketing, and China, Russia, and Iran are humiliating our country. Joe Biden is destroying our nation right before our very own eyes. The number one priority for everyone who wants to save America is to pour every single ounce of energy you have into winning a gigantic victory in the midterms and in 2024.
Now, if you thought that was interesting, here's an ex-Trump organization executive, Barbara Ress, who was the former executive vice president for the Trump organization. Folks, this is somebody who was right at the top. This isn't just somebody who was doing a dead-end job in the Trump administration. This is the former executive vice president for the Trump administration, Barbara Ress. She spoke with CNN's Jim Acosta about the possibility of New York prosecutors filing criminal charges against her former employer. And she said, I quote, Trump deserves to go to jail. Wow. Let's roll the tape and watch. This is pretty incredible. Let's roll the tape and check this out.
But the Trump organization is not General Motors. It was just a kind of loose thing that we called ourselves, and I think it was incorporated, but later, after I started there. I'm sure that every operation that he has is held in a separate holding company or an LLC. So I'm not exactly sure what entities or where they're going with this. Now, as far as Trump is concerned, if they were to get evidence against Trump, it would be to the extent that really nothing major has ever happened to my knowledge. And this is confirmed by other people that worked with him much later, that he doesn't know about. Nothing major. So he is in this with his, both legs. And I think that if they get something, it'll be to go after Trump. What I've observed over, 20 years or really the last 5 or 6, certainly. I mean, that's an opinion of a citizen, not even somebody that knows Trump. But I do know him, and I know that he's very deliberate, very measured, and very vengeful. And he doesn't follow the rules. He never did follow the rules. So does he deserve to go to jail? I imagine he does.
And if you thought that was interesting, here's a headline from The Atlantic. Inside William Barr's breakup with Trump. In the final months of the administration, the doggedly loyal Attorney General finally had enough. In a series of interviews with The Atlantic this spring, Barr spoke for the first time about the events surrounding his break with Trump. Folks, this is a pretty unbelievable article, and I encourage you to click the link in the description below and definitely check out the article. In fact, the Senate Majority Leader at that time, Mitch McConnell, was specifically asking Barr to speak up against the big lie because he felt that Barr, being the top lawyer in the country, would try and should try to set the record straight. This is a very, very important quote from the Atlantic article. To McConnell, the road to maintaining control of the Senate was simple. Folks, the only thing Mitch McConnell cares about is winning elections. He does not care about former President Trump. He cares about winning elections and making sure the conservative agenda is furthered in the United States of America. He's a very experienced and a very shrewd political operator that way, and he knows, and he's been around the block a lot more than former President Trump. So, to McConnell, the road to maintaining control of the Senate was simple. Republicans needed to make the argument that with Biden soon to be in the White House, it was crucial that they have a majority in the Senate to check his power. But McConnell also believed that if he openly declared Biden the winner, Trump would be enraged and likely act to sabotage the Republican Senate campaigns in Georgia. In fact, Barr shared this with The Atlantic, and McConnell even confirmed the account. Look, we need the president in Georgia, McConnell told Barr, and so we cannot be frontally attacking him right now. But you're in a better position to inject some reality into this situation. You are really the only one who can do it. I understand that, Barr said, and I'm going to do it at the appropriate time. On another call, McConnell again pleaded with Barr to come out and shoot down the talk of widespread fraud, the nonsense about the big lie. And this is what he said. Bill, I look around and you're the only person who can do it. In fact, here's an exchange between Trump and Barr in the White House. This is what Trump said to Barr. Did you say that? Barr responded, yes. How the could you do this to me? Why did you say it? And by the way, this refers to Barr saying in an Associated Press article that he believed there were no widespread shenanigans in the election. And this is what Barr responded. He said, because it's true. The president, livid, responded by referring to himself in the third person, you must hate Trump. You must hate Trump. Then this is what Trump said to Barr. They saw the boxes going in, referring to the stories about boxes of illegal ballots being counted. And Barr responded, you know, Mr. President, there are 662 precincts in Wayne County. Trump seemed taken aback that Barr knew the exact number. It's the only county with all the boxes going to a central place, and you actually did better there this time around than you did last time. You keep on saying that the Department of Justice is not looking at this stuff, and we are looking at it in a responsible way. But your people keep on shoveling this out. Now, what's interesting here, folks, is that the president actually did better in certain counties, but he got crushed. He got crushed by Biden in the suburbs. That is why he lost. Now, Trump went on and on. He kept ranting on and on about this fraud. And this is what Barr said. You know, you only have 5 weeks, Mr. President, after an election to make legal challenges. This would have taken a crackerjack team with really coherent and disciplined strategies. Instead, you have a clown show. By the way, folks, the clown show is former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who, by the way, has lost his law license to practice law in the city of New York, and the clown attorney Sidney Powell, who, by the way, was sued by Dominion, and who then said that if anybody believed her, it was their fault for believing her. Yep, this is the clown show that Barr is referring to. Folks, I really need to repeat this. This is absolutely incredible. This is a conversation between the Attorney General of the United States and the President of the United States. I'm going to repeat this. This would have taken a crackerjack team with a really coherent and disciplined strategy. Instead, you have a clown show. No self-respecting lawyers going anywhere near it. It's just a joke. That's why you are where you are. Interestingly, Trump didn't argue when he heard the word clown show legal team. In fact, he said, you may be right about that. So folks, this is what's going on. And folks, this is the unbelievable conversation that took place between the Attorney General and the former President of the United States. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. This is the big lie that is being propagated even now by former President Trump. I want you to let me know in the comment section below, do you believe the big lie, or do you believe that this is all nonsense? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. Please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.